Hey guys, I'm finally ready to share my Japan trip with you, and I really took a lot of care into figuring out how I wanted to present all of our Japan footage for you because I didn't want it to just be like a regular travel vlog. So I think what the most helpful way that I can show you guys all this footage is how we planned this trip. I have so many friends who are planning their very first trip to Japan and they're just as overwhelmed as I was. So that's what this video is going to be, how we planned it, what we learned, everything that I would tell you as a bestie if you're planning your first trip to Japan, what we learned on our first trip to Japan. So I was super overwhelmed in planning this trip. It took me about a year and a half just to sit down and start planning it. So if you're in that boat, believe me, I was there too. The thing that tripped me up was we had a lot of credit card points that I knew that I wanted to use. And so I had to find out what was going to be the most efficient way to use our points. For us, it made more sense to use the points on hotels rather than flights. It's just going to depend on you when you're going, what kind of points you have. So we flew ANA out of Honolulu. We live on the Big Island, so we paid for our flight to go from the Big Island to Honolulu, and then from Honolulu to Japan we flew into the Narita airport. It was a non-stop flight and we just paid cash for those, and I want to say it was around $700 per person flying from Honolulu to Tokyo. I used all of our points for hotels. Not all of our hotels, but most of our hotels. So we stayed at the Hyatt Regency Tokyo, and then we moved to the Disneyland Hotel, which I couldn't use points for, so we paid out of pocket for those. Then we moved to Kyoto and we stayed at a Hyatt hotel there with point. And then we also went back to Tokyo and we stayed at the Richmond Premier International Hotel in Asakusa. One thing to note about the hotels in Japan is that the rooms can be very small with 2 single beds in them. And so our family of 4 had to split up most of the night. So the points really came in handy because that would have been quite expensive if we had paid cash for those hotels. For our flights, we set up a Google alert to let us know about low fares going from Honolulu to Tokyo. And once that popped up and said, oh, this is a lower than normal fare, we went ahead and bought them. We traveled in October and we bought our tickets in June of 2025. We did want to figure out internet before we got there. My phone was the only phone that was unlocked, and so I could download an eSIM for like $40, and that gave me internet for the entire 11-day trip. My husband and my other daughter did not have unlocked phones, so we got a Wi-Fi box when we arrived in Tokyo. And here's another tip: you may want to reserve that before you land. I thought that we would have no issues getting a Wi-Fi box at the airport, but when we got there they were sold out. So try to reserve it ahead of time. We ended up waiting a day looking online to see where there was a Wi-Fi box available, but it was kind of a pain. So try to reserve that ahead of time if you're going to need a Wi-Fi box. If you have unlocked phones, I would definitely recommend the eSIM. I loved having the eSIM on my phone, and it was a lot cheaper than the Wi-Fi box. The Wi-Fi box was about $70. When it came to packing, we packed light and we also brought extra luggage. So we packed carry-ons, and then one of our carry-ons we put inside of an empty, hard-sided, larger check-in size luggage. And then we also brought these packable duffels, which came in handy. Also, I would recommend packing some headache medicine. I got really bad jet lag the first day, and it was really hard to find ibuprofen or Tylenol. If you're traveling during October-ish, I would recommend either bringing a small umbrella or buying one as soon as you get there, because sometimes the sky would just let out and you would get drenched. Also, bring your most comfortable pair of shoes. You can bring some new shoes if you want to, you want to dress cute for your trip, but bring your most comfortable pair. I am so glad my husband made me do that, because I bought a new pair of shoes and I broke them in ahead of time, but I was really just planning on bringing that pair of shoes because they were cuter. But my husband was like, you should bring your Hokas, even though they're running shoes, like you should bring them because we're going to be doing lots of walking. And after like the first or second day, I switched to my Hokas and I wore them for the rest of the trip because he was right. Even though my new shoes were very comfortable, they were not as comfortable as my Hokas. So bring your most comfortable shoes because we averaged about 20 to 25,000 steps a day. And then a couple things that you want to think about bringing with you as you're exploring. I packed a couple Ziploc bags to have in my purse because it's really hard to find trash cans along the way. So as you're walking around, so you're gonna have to carry your trash with you till you get back to the hotel. So I had some Ziploc bags, and anytime we had a little baggie from buying something, especially like from 7-Eleven, then I would keep that as a trash bag. Another thing I kept in my purse at all times was a little towel because a lot of the bathrooms don't have paper towels or hand dryers, so it was really helpful to have a little towel to dry our hands after washing. And there's so many cute towels that you can buy in Japan. I actually picked up 2 hand towels from a Studio Ghibli merch store in Tokyo Station. And then pajamas. A lot of the hotels provide pajamas, so you don't even need to pack this. Like, save room in your suitcase. Okay, so that was all before the trip. We flew ANA. Oh my gosh, I was blown away by how much they fed us. I swear they kept us fed like the whole time. It was about an 8.5-hour flight. We flew during the day there, and then on the way back we had a red eye. And then once we got to Narita Airport, we did a couple things. We did try to get a Wi-Fi box. Again, they were sold out. And then we just hopped on the airport limousine bus. This is such a good tip, especially if you had a long travel day and you don't want to figure out the train stations. Once you get into the arrivals area of the airport, just look for the airport limousine bus. Go up to the counter, they will put you on the next bus, and it was so convenient. They load all your bags for you, and they will either take you to the closest train station to your hotel, or if you're really lucky and you stay at the Hyatt Regency Tokyo, that's an official stop, so they'll take you straight to your hotel. Okay, things that we did in Tokyo. The very first thing we did was go to the Meiji Jingu Shrine, which was so relaxing and so peaceful. Highly recommend. I think it's a must in Tokyo. I would recommend bringing an umbrella, and I would recommend going to 7-Eleven or somewhere beforehand to get 100 yen coins, because anytime you go to a temple or a shrine, there will be opportunities for you to use coins to pull your fortune. There were some vendors that were selling different amulets, and so I bought something and then had change to pull fortunes, but it would have been a lot nicer if we just had 100 yen. Also, if you're going to be going to shrines and temples, I would recommend packing a small notebook or getting a small notebook when you get to Japan at 7-Eleven or Lawson's, because they have these really cool stamps. And I believe you're supposed to have a different notebook for shrine stamps and one for train stamps. But I would recommend having at least one notebook because my kids really enjoyed the stamp. The other temple that we went to in Tokyo was the Sensoji Temple, and this was at the tail end of our trip when we were staying in Asakusa. Again, I would recommend having 100 yen on you. Outside of the temples and shrines, we did tons of shopping. The very first day and the second day, we went to Harajuku, which is very stimulating and lots of fun, lots of music, lots of lights, so many things to do and see. And it was really just a lot of fun for me and my family. Very first thing that we saw in Harajuku were the gachapons and the capsule toys. So again, you're gonna want those 100 yen. In Harajuku, you can also find some of the animal cafes, whether you choose to partake in that or not. I know a lot of people have some very strong opinions about the animal cafes, but that is also there if you would like to partake in those. We also went to a great little ramen restaurant there, which a lot of the ramen restaurants, like these little side stalls, are very small, and a lot of them might have counter seating, but some of them do have like one small table. For this particular restaurant, when we went, the table was full, and so we just left, did some more shopping, and tried again, and it happened to be empty, so we went ahead and snagged it. But there's so many restaurants that if something that you thought you wanted is full, I'm sure you can find lots of options just by walking a couple paces down. We also didn't make any dinner reservations. We just found places to eat, and I would recommend that. In Harajuku, there were just so many cute little shops. If you have kids, definitely go to Kittyland. There was a huge Smisky display that my kids loved. We also went to this neighborhood called Shimokitazawa, which was like a vintage vibey neighborhood. We loved that. Our third full day, we went over to Ginza and we went to Muji for some stationery shopping. We also went to Itoya, which is the 12th floor stationery store. And I wish I had spent more time here, but it was very crowded. So we ended up just going outside and across the street to the annex, and we were able to make custom notebooks there. But Itoya was a lot of fun. I wish that I had stayed a little bit longer there. And there are so many other stationery stores. If I could do it over again, I would make a list of all the stores that I want to go to, because I thought that they would be easier to find, but I think there's just so many that it would be nice to have a list of places that you want to see. As you are going around and eating in Japan, a lot lot of the places have tablets where you order straight from your table. I would recommend looking to see if there's an English button. Most likely there will be. We didn't know our first time, and we were trying to Google Translate the entire menu from our phones, which we probably looked so silly. So yeah, look for an English button. Most likely there will be one. As far as getting around, we did do the trains a lot. We had the Suica app on our phones. My daughter had a little Suica card that she wore on a lanyard around her neck. It is very economical and it can be very simple. I'm gonna be honest, I did none of the navigating. I left that up to my husband because it was stressful for me. You find the trains to be very stressful. People are very fast moving. They're getting to where they need to go. I would have the Go Taxi app downloaded on your phone as a backup and just take a cab. We did the cabs more times than I thought that we would, just because it was simpler that way and we didn't have to worry about carrying luggage. Not around Tokyo while we were staying at our hotel, but once we were moving around, moving hotels, we did take a cab from our first hotel to Disney. So it was well worth it. Also, if you do get turned around in the train stations, we got stuck in the Shinjuku train station for 2 hours. Do not hesitate to go to the tourist information centers because they can tell you exactly where you need to go. I used them when we went to the Tokyo station and we were looking for Character Street. But I just went to the tourist information center and was like, how do I find Character Street? And she just told me exactly how to get there. So definitely go there. They speak English. So as you're going around, if you see a bathroom, use it, because when you need to use the bathroom, it might be hard to find one. So use bathroom as often as you see one. When we left Disneyland to go to Kyoto, we were coming back to Tokyo in just a couple days. Our Kyoto trip was just like a 2.5 day trip. And so we didn't want to take all of our luggage to Kyoto. It just didn't make sense. So from Disney, we sent our bigger luggage onto our final hotel in Tokyo. Super affordable. I want to say it was like $40 to have that sent over there so we could just take our carry-ons to Kyoto. Thank goodness we did, because when we arrived after taking the bullet train and then taking a smaller train over to our hotel, there were no escalators. It was all stairs. And so it was even tough with just our carry-ons going up and down so many stairs to get to our hotel. There may be instances in the train stations where there are no escalators and you will have to lug your luggage up and down stairs by hand. Use the luggage transfer service if you can. We used the Klook app in order to do that. We also did the luggage transfer service on our last day because our flight wasn't until 8 p.m. And so we sent our luggage that morning to go to the airport while we did some more exploring. And it was really nice because we could just walk around with our backpacks. And then we got to the airport and our bags were just there waiting for us. So those were the two instances that we used the luggage transfer. If you're traveling as a family, I would also recommend booking your Shinkansen bullet train tickets ahead of time so that you can make sure that your seats are reserved together. When we took the Shinkansen, it was pretty full, so I'm glad that we booked that ahead of time. And we just booked it the night before, so you don't have to do this days in advance. We did laundry in Tokyo and Kyoto. Both of the laundromats that we found had big industrial size laundry machines that wash and dry all in one. Don't have to pack a ton of clothes, pack very light because you will just be able to wash them. Our last hotel, Richmond, had a laundry facility. We came back to the hotel during the middle of the day when most of the guests were out exploring, and we did our laundry and had our lunch, and then we went back out. Things we did in Kyoto, the very first thing we did was go to a yakiniku restaurant by our hotel. It was so good. The next day, our only full day in Kyoto, we went to the Imperial Palace, which was beautiful and so serene. My husband loved it. That was the one thing he wanted to do in Kyoto. We took a cab over to Ninzaka Street, and this place was a madhouse, but I knew it would be. This is one of the busiest places in Kyoto. Worth it for us. We did lots of Studio Ghibli shopping. We saw the Yasaka Pagoda, and we went to the mochi shop where the guy's like pounding the mochi. So it was totally worth going, but it was packed. From there, we took a cab to the Arashiyama bamboo forest, and we went at nighttime because in October they did this special lantern festival. I wish that I had spent a little bit more time in Kyoto. So if it were up to me and I were planning your trip, I would plan a day to get there, like a half a day to get there, and then have 2 full days in Kyoto, and then the 4th day move on to your next place. I think that there's just so much more to see in Kyoto, and I missed out on that. We went to 2 bakeries. One is this really like little small hole in the wall bakery, and then the other one was called School Bus Coffee, and that's where we got our breakfast every morning. And then there was this really nice Japanese cheesecake shop that we went to. I mean, the food in Japan in general was just amazing. I loved everything, every meal that we had over there. But Kyoto, I think, was just very memorable with like the smaller shop. Okay, now we're gonna talk about Disney because this was probably the most complicated part of our trip. I knew I wanted to stay at a Disneyland hotel because you get happy entry into the parks. And this is a 15-minute window that you get into the park before the general public. And that allows you to pre-book some of the more popular rides so you get to skip those lines. What I didn't know when I booked our tickets was that your hotel determines what parks you get happy entry into. I thought that if you stayed at any Disney hotel that you would get happy entry into both Disneyland and also Disney Sea, but that is not true. So we booked 2 nights at the Tokyo Disneyland Hotel, and we were able to use happy entry into Tokyo Disneyland, but not Disney Sea. So what I would recommend is if you want to do happy entry into both parks, you're probably going to need to move hotels unless you can book both nights at a hotel that gives you happy entry into both parks. I know that's super confusing, but go to their website and that will help you walk through all of this. The other thing to know is happy entry only applies the day after you check in. So we went thinking that we could go drop our bags off and go hit the park, get in early before actually doing the full check-in process, and that's not how it works. So what I would recommend is actually going a little bit later the day that you check into Disney. Spend that day in Tokyo, do something else that day, because really you're not going to be able to get into the park early the same day that you check in. So go do something else. If you really want to hit the park, they do give a discounted ticket option, but I would plan your 2 full days at Disney to be after you check in. So check into your hotel the next morning, use your happy entry into whatever park you want to go to that day, stay the night, and then use your happy entry for the second day, spend the whole day at Disney. Ideally, for 2 full days at Disneyland and Disney Sea, you would probably need to stay 3 nights, but I know that that might stretch the budget. Just know that the happy entry doesn't apply the same day that you check in. It only applies the next day. Go ahead and do some research on the Disney Premier passes, the 40th anniversary pass, whatever passes they have going on right now in their app, because it works a lot differently than the US parks. There's so many videos out there that kind of walk you through this, but those would be my 2 biggest things about Tokyo Disney is figuring out how to use that app and figuring out your check-in days and all of that. So for our trip, we did Disney Sea first. It was so much fun, but we weren't able to really get into all of the rides. We didn't do any rides in Fantasy Springs because we weren't able to get into the park early, and so we weren't able to reserve those rides, and I was not about to wait in a line for 3 hours. So we did as much as we could. We thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, even though we couldn't do all the rides. Loved it. Some of my favorite things about Disney Sea was just how beautiful the park is. Honestly, even if you don't ride any rides, it's so much fun just to walk around and eat the food. The food was so reasonably priced, and I love all the little popcorn stands that they have around the park. Definitely do those. I regret not getting a souvenir popcorn bucket, so don't miss out on those. And then my favorite thing from both of the parks was the Believe Sea of Dreams parade light show over the water. That is a not to be missed show. Also, one of our favorite treats was the little mochi dumplings, the little green dumplings. They were so yummy. When we were done at Disney Sea, we went to the hotel. Our bags were already in the room, which was really nice, and slept, then got up early to do happy entry into the Disneyland park. Made such a big difference. As soon as we got in, I did the Disney Premier Pass for Beauty and the Beast. I did the Haunted Mansion, and this was as we were going to Splash Mountain. I mean, we just were able to ride so many rides at Disneyland because we had that happy entry. Disneyland was so fun. So many great places to just like eat your way through the park. They had really cool parades. Anyway, I'm going to be showing you all the clips here from Disneyland, but just know your app is going to be your best friend. So again, you're going to want to make sure you have internet because that app is what's going to allow you to see the wait times and also allow you to purchase passes to skip the line. And I totally feel like one day at each of the parks was plenty. We didn't feel like we missed out on anything. If I could give you my biggest piece of advice is to stay stay in one of the park hotels because of that happy entry. I cannot stress enough how big of a difference that made when we were able to use it on the one day to be able to get as many rides as we can and not have to wait in as many lines. If you can make it fit into your budget, highly recommend. And that is it. That was our Japan trip. Hopefully this was helpful in some way. I think it was just so overwhelming for me to plan my Japan trip that if I had a friend that could just sit down with me and be like, this is what we did, this is what we learned, this is what you should take with you, that would have been so helpful. So hopefully this was helpful for you and you got to see a little bit of our trip. If you have any questions, please just let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. And I will see you in next week's video. Bye!